The majority of court sides with the Pentagon over challenge by Lieutenant Colonel who cited religious grounds for his refusal to get the vaccine. The Supreme Court has allowed the U.S. Department of Defense to take disciplinary action against an Air Force lieutenant colonel who refuses to get a COVID-19 vaccine. In a brief two-sentence ruling on Monday, a majority of the court sided with the Pentagon. 3 justices in the conservative majority, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Neil Gorsuch, dissented. The ruling has merely the court's latest on challenges to the COVID-19 vaccine mandates. In January, the court blocked a Biden administration requirement that employees of large businesses be vaccinated and wear masks on the job. The court ruled in March that the U.S. Navy had the authority to determine the job assignments of 35 service members who refused to get vaccinated. The case in question on Monday involved Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Dunn, previously commander of 40-member squadron in California, according to court documents filed by U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar. Prelogar argued that while Dunn cited religious grounds for his refusal to get vaccinated, he did not assert that COVID-19 vaccine or compulsory vaccination in general is inconsistent with his Christian faith, noting that he has received other vaccinations without objection. Dunn instead cited a speech given by Joe Biden that led him to conclude that the vaccine ceased to be merely a medical invention and took on a symbolic and even a sacramental quality. His religion, he said, forbade him from participating in such religious ritual. I'm surprised they didn't go, well, Joe Biden's a Christian. He says it's okay. Upon denial of his exemption request, Dunn sent to a major general a one-word memorandum that simply read, nuts, exclamation point in all caps. Excuse me. Prelogar noted that while Dunn maintains he meant no disrespect, nuts has a well-known military historical connotation. She cited that the case of Anthony McAuliffe, a key U.S. military officer in the Second World War, who responded to a German message requesting an American surrender with a one-word answer. The American officer who delivered McAuliffe's message to German officers clarified that if you don't understand what nuts means in plain English, it is the same as go to hell. The court documents say that the Air Force took disciplinary action against Dunn, including his removal from command and non-punitive disciplinary measures, citing his commanding officer who has said he had lost trust in Dunn's leadership and judgment due to a memorandum and that he displayed a pattern of lack of disrespect for military authority. Now that's just absolutely preposterous. So if you go into the doctor's office in the military and you say no to the vaccine, you say no to the jab, this experiment, that's going on in society, and you say no to that, as someone that's trying to fight for the freedoms of this country, it's you lose trust in your leadership, and they start citing you for lack of judgment. And they start disciplining you, all because you won't get the jab. They remove you from your command. It's sad. We've all seen the stories of Chris Hunter and some of these other military members. They have enough issues on their hand. We've seen the types of health issues that the vaccine brings on, and that's why some of these people are saying no. They have a right to say no. Just like you have a right to say no to drugs. You have a right to say no to sex. Whatever. You have a right to say no to the jab as well. Put that on a t-shirt. You have the right to say no. Let's see, which story do I want to go with next? All right, some of them are a little, I guess we could. keep it in this room right here. So the next story, there's an Ohio doctor recently that accused of overprescribing fentanyl to the dying. He was found not guilty of murder. It's something that I dealt with personally with my one of my grandparents. She was she was on her deathbed, and they came in and like gave her like this final dose of fentanyl that kind of in like 2 seconds later she was unfortunately passed, and the doctors ended up leaving a couple hours later, and my parents and I and my aunts and uncle Russ, and they're like, that was kind of weird that they came in and we called them for help, and next thing you know they were gone. But let me read a little bit of this story. The Ohio doctor accused of overprescribing fentanyl to his critically ill patients and hastening their deaths was found not guilty of 14 counts of murder on Wednesday. William Hustle and his attorney embraced at the defense table after the 14th and final not guilty verdict was read in court. He was subsequently discharged from the courtroom. The decision comes just over a week after jurors began deliberating and days after they said they were at an impasse and could not reach a unanimous verdict, leading Franklin County Judge Michael Holbrook to instruct them to continue their deliberations. After the verdict, Franklin County, Ohio prosecutor Gary Tack praised both sides of the case. The state of Ohio, William Hustle, was carefully tried and prepared by both the prosecution and the defense. He said the jury, after review of all evidence, was not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that William Hustle was guilty of any charges submitted to them. We accept the jury verdict. Defense attorney Jose Baez celebrated the acquittal, criticized the investigation that led to the charges. In a Zoom call with reporters, he said Hustle hopes to eventually practice medicine again. Watch out for this doctor if you're out there. I can tell you he's incredibly happy and grateful. He wants his time right now to spend with his family. Hustle faced 14 counts of murder. As prosecutors said, he purposely administered excessive doses of fentanyl that caused or sped up the deaths of patients in the intensive care unit from 2015 to 2018. All of the counts also included the lesser charge of attempted murder. If you hasten a person's death, even if their death is as sure as sun is going to rise in the morning, if you hasten that along, you have caused their death under the eyes of the law, Franklin County Prosecutor David Zion said in the closing arguments. Baez argued prosecutors had not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that doses actually hastened the patient's death or that Hustle purposely intended to kill the patients. I mean, it's a very thin margin between having a non-lethal fentanyl dose and a lethal fentanyl dose. It's a drip or two, you know. You're a drip or two away. So to say that it's not, you can't prove it. I mean, you could take an extremely healthy person and give them enough fentanyl, and you can stop their heart from beating. I'm not going to continue more, but just know that if you're a patient in Ohio and you get this Dr. Hustle, watch out. Dr. Doom is on the doorstep if he's in your back pocket. I don't know. I said why if he's in your back pocket. But here we go. My next article here. Netflix loses 200,000 subscribers in quarter one, predicts loss of 2 million more in quarter two. And they actually came out and said that they've been studying the numbers and the algorithms. And there's too many families, there's too many friends, acquaintances, former lovers. There's too many people sharing their Netflix passwords out there. So they're going to start cracking down and making all of you out there start paying for your own accounts.
Come on, man.
If there's one thing Biden can do on the Build Back Better agenda, it's pay for
Come
everyone's
on, man.
Netflix. Either way, this is because of the woke culture, if you ask me. You know, like if you go on to Netflix, they last year, a couple years ago, they did a cuties. You know, they advertised the show about the underage girl dancer, erotic dancers, or whatever the heck it was. Then you got the trannies reading books to young kids in the library. Then every single movie you watch on Netflix, the world's ending because of a because humans are scum of the earth, and we're causing too much pollution and too much damage. So they need to get rid of humans and less the population, or else there's some aliens that come down and they try to destroy us. There's always some reason, always some mad scientist out there that's trying to kill half the population. Like, just look at the Avengers. What was the big dude's name? Big purple guy. I forget his name. He killed Iron Man. Spoiler alert. Let's look at the Avengers. That's what the movie was about. Eliminating half the world's population. And Netflix is losing subscribers because of wokeism. And it's undeniable at this point. Every comedy you watch on there, they're leaning left. They're making fun of Trump tards or whatever they call Trump fans. It was all just make fun of Trump for the past 4 years. Now they have nothing else to talk about. Every documentary they produce it's about climate change. It's about pandemics. It's always about some human caused catastrophe, and everyone's getting sick of it. Everyone's getting sick of the fingers getting pointed at us. We all know it's the giant corporations out there that are really causing all the damage. What's up, John Wilkins? Wonderful show with Housatonic, by the way. Wonderful show. Would you like to participate in News Hour? Oh, John Wilkins says yes to participating in News Hour. You can come on. You can come on screen. Oh, he's going to sit off screen. I think you need to connect a microphone, though. I don't even know what I was just talking about anymore. Oh, Netflix. So Netflix is, they're dying because of wokeism, and they need to change the narrative. Hollywood, quit being in the deep state's back pocket. Comedy's gone. Have you ever noticed that, John? There's no more good.
Yeah, the best comedians refuse to go on stage anymore because of the political correctness.
Yeah, it's like I haven't seen a good comedy in like 4 or 5 years. It's been like it was what was that movie with where the guys go to Las Vegas or whatever and they all get
The older guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a good.
it was a bachelor party in
Yeah,
Vegas.
that was at least 7 years ago.
Yeah, and it's just that was like the last good comedy that came out, and it's just like comedy's dead. Netflix, no one goes to the movies anymore. Netflix destroyed it, and every comedian out there, they're just getting hushed by the woke crowd and told to shut up, and they're getting canceled, and you can tell that it's hurting, and they're really the ones that would speak out against Hollywood in these type of times, and you see why they would kind of shut down the comedian's point of view when it comes to all this stuff. All right, so I got another article here. If you got any articles, by the way, feel free. TikTok under U.S. government investigation over child sexual abuse material. The short video app accused of being perfect place for predators by Department of Homeland Security. Yeah, this is a problem with social media in general. I remember YouTube went through the same thing as well. You have kids making these channels and parents not monitoring what their kids are doing on the screen, and the child predators, they just pour over this stuff and they comment in the chats and share the videos with each other, and it's actually disgusting. And these social media companies do very little to kind of tamper this type of activity down. You think after like how social media has been around for over a decade now at this point, and literally every single one has this type of issue. You think this would kind of be in the forefront of their minds when they start coming out with video apps, like how are we going to protect the children, because they're going on these things, they're just trying to make fun little videos, and they see kids opening presents and getting millions of views and making some money. Who knows if their parents are taking advantage of them or not? But yeah, they're like it's a breeding ground for sexual predators, and it's you. If anything, they could use them to like kind of entrap more of these guys. But it doesn't seem to be happening. And we were just talking about Hollywood. A lot of these apps are birthed out of Silicon Valley in California, and Hollywood and California. They just keep passing more and more laws to protect sexual predators and people who abuse children. And it's a common theme on the West Coast, and it just kind of follows through with these social media apps. John, do you have any comment?
Yeah, but it looks like TikTok is they're going to spend a lot more time investigating TikTok instead of the people putting the material, the content on the TikTok site. And it a lot of people back home ask me, where are the Americans' priorities? Look how they're spending their money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of embarrassing.
I've also just seen other things with TikTok. I'm sure people buying it now know it was developed in China, and there's two different ways that app is deployed. Like in the Asian markets, it's more educational, and it like kind of has some like learning and teaching instructions behind the content. And it's over here in the United States, it's just like dumb people dancing and shaking their butts. Pretty much, you got to be good looking, and that's like the difference in the algorithms of what gets pushed to the top and what's pushed down are different in countries around the world. And if that is 100, if that is true, it just adds to the continuation to the dumbing down of our society, and it shows in our education numbers where we're not up to par. We're not near the top of any education numbers or around the world. I don't have the exact stuff on me, but and we've been shutting down schools for the past years. We've been sitting at home eating. They've been limiting our food supply at supermarkets. So the fast food, there's always cheeseburgers and french fries at the fast food, though. So they're fattening us up while we're sitting here at home and watching dumb TikToks while we're not in school. And it's going to have some long-term detriment to our American society in the future, for our children. And we need to gain back control of because our children's America is escaping from our grasp.
It's like that fifth grade teacher up in Detroit said, she can tell when her kids are watching TikTok or on their cell phone in general because they're always staring down at their lap while they're quote unquote studying.
That is we all had our own different techniques for sneaking stuff. I do remember, I know technology wasn't up to par, but during the March Madness, I actually got kicked out of class one time because March Madness happens during the school hours. I had I never wore like a hoodie ever. And I would wear like a hoodie and I would just kind of put the radio over my ear and listen to the basketball
That's a new
games
one.
in class. And I got in trouble and kicked out of class for listening to March Madness. But yeah, I couldn't imagine having a cell phone and TikTok and text messaging and be
Yo, the teacher asks, "What is AX plus B?" and the student starts laughing hysterically. He's watching TikTok.
That is a good point. And here's speaking of the children, Florida Department of Education rejects 54 math textbooks, citing references to critical race theory. And this is just continuing the degradation of our education system, adding elements like this. You see them like the past couple of years. They're trying to I guess remove a lot of history from the textbooks, you could say, even with like goes down to like the taking down of statues. But they're trying to change the narrative on Christopher Columbus and some of these other historical figures in our path. They're calling everyone racist nowadays, and you shouldn't put them up on pedestals. So we're changing the name of our high school and all this stuff. So they're trying to change the history, and they've been hitting that hard. Now they're continuing with critical race theory, even in math textbooks. And it's just I'm not sure what the examples are exactly. I didn't read the whole article.
Well, I've got a good one. Almost all the textbooks used at MIT were rewritten between 2016 and 2018 in order to include an example of climate change on every other page.
Yeah, that's another one. You're right. Climate change has been like they're changing our history. They're changing the science on our climate. They're giving all our kids jabs. They're adding critical race theory to the textbooks, and they're trying to change their sex. Like instead of worrying about how to do taxes or math or history or science or how to read and how to write better, it's, hey, do you have a wiener or do you have a vagina? It's like, what are we talking about here? Let our kids just grow in a conducive environment for that makes them reach their potential. And you guys are just dumping all this extra stuff in here and making them worry about other things that aren't important. And that's why you see like the Asian countries. That's why they're taking the lead, because they pound education and they make sure their kids are on top of it, and they don't add political agenda to their math textbooks. It might be like you have two boys driving to the school, one gets out of the car. How many boys end up at the school? One, just to give you a super dumb example. But that's the only way they're mentioning sex in the textbooks. Moving on.
Is cancel culture a thing in Japan?
I highly doubt it. Very highly doubt it. So, I hate this article right here. The graphics not working correctly. Even a mild case of COVID can shrink your brain, the same as aging 10 years, study shows. So what we've been talking about, even a mild case of COVID, a mild case of COVID caused by a vaccine, that can shrink your brain and cause you to age 10 years. They just.
Well, what if you were already a Pittsburgh Steelers fan to begin with? What would COVID do in
that? Hopefully, when they bomb the whole state of Pennsylvania, Joe Biden's in there. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
But yeah, we're talking. We've been chatting about the education system and the dumbing down of our children. Hey, it's okay for your kid to get a jab. It's okay that he might get a mild case of COVID. It's okay that his or her brain, might age 10 years. Everyone in society, if they told you this, a couple years ago, before you got the first booster, before you got the second booster, if you got 3 booster shots and you got COVID three times, does that mean you aged by 30 years? Does that go into the Klaus Schwab Great Reset plan, ladies and gentlemen? People dying earlier? Wouldn't that be part of the narrative? What do you think, John?
The Great Reset, as Klaus says, is a very good thing because it makes people get older faster and then they die sooner.
You will own nothing and you will like it. So I think I want to switch into the virus stuff here real quick, actually, John Wilkins, if you don't mind, because I have a little bit of video. And we got Wendy Sloan coming up at neighborhoodnewsstudio.com. Don't you like it when singers?
Wendy's World.
Wendy's World. Wendy's World with Wendy Sloan. I always wanted to hold the microphone and sing.
Please don't.
Wendy's World. Wendy's World. Party time. It's happening. We're just having fun here at neighborhoodnewsstudio.com. But Wendy's World, party time coming on at 5 p.m. It's just in half an hour. So I want to get into some engineering of viruses just for a little bit here. For the last half hour. Because I started chatting yesterday when Chris Hunter was running late about how the original SARS-CoV virus was engineered. The one that broke out in 2003. So I have some interesting articles in a video that I thought you guys might find interesting as well, and might get you guys to kind of believe that same narrative. This one's titled, "Is it possible to engineer viruses to perform specific tasks within a human host? That is, to create viruses that are beneficial rather than detrimental to human health?" Leslie Snyder, biotechnology instructor at Miracosta College. Not only is it possible to engineer viruses to be beneficial, it is already being done. Viruses have primarily been engineered for use by humans as so-called recombinant or subunit vaccines. In this technology, the genetic material of a harmful virus is analyzed to identify the gene or genes that encode the antigens, identify proteins that trigger the body's immune response. These genes can then be isolated and inserted into host cells, usually bacteria or yeast. The host cells in turn manufacture the antigens in large quantities. The antigens are injected into humans and result in the formation of memory B cells, which are tailored to the alien antigen, thereby protecting against the disease caused by the whole virus. The first recombinant vaccine designed for human use immunizes against hepatitis B. It was approved by the Food and Drug Administration in 1986. So your hepatitis vaccine is a recombinant virus vaccine. Viruses also have long been used as cloning vectors, tools for inserting genetic material into a variety of host cells, including bacteria, yeast, and mammalian cells. These host cells are grown in the laboratory under controlled conditions. There are many research projects that focus on the use of viruses to insert normal, healthy human genes into human cells grown in the lab. Some of these engineered cells may be suitable for therapeutic use to alleviate the symptoms of disease or perhaps even provide a kind of cure. Such treatments are currently being tested for the treatment of emphysema and cystic fibrosis. These diseases affect lung tissue, and it is relatively easy to deliver the engineered cells to the lungs via aerosol sprays. Now, does that sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? An engineered virus uh, that's relatively easy to deliver to the lungs via aerosol spray. Does that sound like SARS-CoV-2? I got some science to back it up as well. The use of viruses to inject genetic information into living cells of living organisms, for instance, to insert normal genes into the cells of a patient whose disease is caused by a genetic flaw, is much more difficult and will require a great deal of additional research. Gene therapy. Nevertheless, researchers are pursuing a number of promising possibilities towards this goal. For example, some scientists are working on schemes to use viruses to deliver normal genes directly into the cells, into the lungs of people who have cystic fibrosis, or into the cells lining the walls of blood vessels in order to prevent atherosclerosis. Sorry, stumble with my scientific words. So they're using viruses to deliver genes. This was in 1999. This article is written. I believe. Yeah, October 21st, 1999. So, saying that, I got some other stuff to show you. Bear with me. Caveman science, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to read these. So we got, this is in February 2000. This is the construction of the SARS-CoV virus, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Retargeting of coronavirus by substitution of the spike glycoprotein ectodomain crossing the host cell species barrier. So, using targeted RNA recombination, we constructed a mutant of the coronavirus mouse hepatitis virus in which the ectodomain of the spike glycoprotein was replaced with the highly divergent ectodomain of the S protein of the feline infectious peritonitis virus. The resulting chimeric virus, designated FMHV, acquired the ability to infect feline cells and simultaneously lost the ability to infect murine cells in the tissue culture. And after they did this, they were like, we know how to cross the host cell species barrier. So we crossed it from mouse to cat. Now let's try to cross it from cat to human. Let me see if I can find the right spot. But this was when they figured out how to use the spikes, ladies and gentlemen, in 2000. This is when they officially were like, reverse genetics can happen and we can cross the host cell species barrier via the spike protein in 2000. Mind you, the original SARS outbreak was 2003. I kind of went out of order here. I was supposed to show this other one first. But in 1996, Mark Kulacz gets into the envelope protein a lot. Nucleocapsid independent assembly of coronavirus-like particles by co-expression of viral envelope protein genes. So this is them. I believe they say it in here. Here, I'll just read part of it. Budding of envelope viruses has been shown to be driven by interactions between a nucleocapsid and a proteolipid membrane. By contrast, we here describe the assembly of viral envelopes independent of a nucleocapsid. Membrane particles containing coronaviral envelope proteins were assembled in and released from animal cells to co-expressing these proteins genes from transfected plasmids. Of the 3 viral membrane proteins, only 2 were required for particle formation: the membrane glycoprotein M and the small envelope protein E. The spike protein was dispensable but was incorporated when present. Importantly, the nucleocapsid protein was neither required, not taken into the particles when present. The E protein, recently recognized to be a structural protein, was shown to be an integral membrane protein. The envelope vesicles were found to be immunogold labeling in electron microscopy to form a homogeneous population of spherical particles indistinguishable from authentic coronavirus in size, approximately 100 nanometers in diameter and shape. They were less dense than virons and sedimented slightly slower than virons and sucrose velocity gradients. The nucleocapsid independent formation of apparently bona fide viral envelopes represents a novel mode of virus assembly. So in short, they introduced a gold nanoparticle. A protein came over and it enveloped around the nanoparticle, and it created an indistinguishable protein in the bloodstream from the authentic protein. An indistinguishable coronavirus. This was in 1996. So I got the last one here before I get to the video. This one may be the most important one. So we got, what do we have right now, ladies and gentlemen? We got the protein. We talk about the shells, right? The protein's important because it's like the binder. It binds the spike protein and it holds the RNA in the cell. And that's what we're going to get into right now. Engineering the largest RNA virus genome as an infectious bacterial artificial chromosome. A clone DNA encoding an infectious coronavirus RNA genome has been cloned as a bacterial artificial chromosome. The rescued coronavirus conserved all of the genetic markers introduced throughout the sequence and showed a standard mRNA pattern and an antigenic characteristics expected for the synthetic virus. So in short, they created a synthetic RNA genome, a cloned DNA, an infectious RNA genome that they could insert inside of the envelope protein and attach spikes on the outside of it. This was all before 2003, all before the original SARS outbreak. So once again, here, my Twitter actually breaks it down so much easier. Reading that. The original SARS virus was synthetically engineered in a lab. They, 1, created a synthetic coronavirus via the envelope protein. 2, crossed the host cell species barrier by retargeting the coronavirus via the spike protein. 3, clone DNA using an infectious RNA genome. So you have the spike protein, the envelope, or the spike protein, the envelope protein, and the infectious RNA genome in the inside. If that's not a coronavirus, I don't know what is. And this was all in 2000 that they figured this stuff out. All in 2000. So if the original SARS virus was created in a lab, it definitely means SARS-CoV-2 was created in a lab. They figured this all out. They all think it was kind of because of the Iraq War. They started to do a lot of research into this. They had the radioactive birds flying from Siberia to China. That's what they blamed the virus outbreak on. But I do have a video of this Dr. Maywan Hall. It's called GM Genocide, Terminator Genes, and Farmer Suicides. It explains it a little bit better than me because I'm not a scientist. But here we go. By the way, 5 p.m. Wendy's World. Wendy's World. It's research time with Wendy Sloan. Wendy's World. Wendy's World. Party on, Garth.
Is the radio on? Oh, that was Andy.
Party on, Garth. So that will be in about at 5 p.m. So make sure you stay tuned for Wendy's World.
Well, Monsanto's high lysine GM maize has bit the dust. Basically, yep, great, yeah. And you know what else?
All of this was based off this work too. This little, they tried to make like engineer grain, some virus from grain.
They've withdrawn it from application from the EU in secret some 6 months ago. And the EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority, and higher authorities as well, possibly connived in keeping it a secret. The reason they gave was that it was for commercial reasons because they don't really think there's a market. But actually, for once, EFSA was doing its proper job. They said there were certain safety issues and they wanted more data. And very likely, Monsanto was unable to supply that. Anyway, so what I want to tell you is that there are general hazards of GM.
By the way, she's a scientist, like head of the science, one of the science departments at Hong Kong University, who owns the patent for the original SARS virus. And she kind of rolls with me on this stuff.
GMOs, which are
she follows
general
my work,
to all GMOs because of the way that they are made. And then there are specific hazards to each GMO because basically of what's in it and because of all the hit and miss business involved in making them. So the best definition of GMO that I can think of is an organism with synthetic genetic material inserted into its genome. The genome is just the totality of its genetic material. And it's made in the laboratory with sterile techniques, which also means no sex involved, okay?
Ask her in the chat.
And here is a quick lesson in biology. All organisms, such as a maize plant, is made up of tissues and cells. And as you go down the scale with an increasingly powerful microscope, you will see that the cells have a nucleus in the middle, and this nucleus contains chromosomes. The chromosomes are little structures, and the totality of the chromosomes is your genome, because each chromosome, if you unwind it, is a long, very, very long, thin thread called chromatin. And if you strip the chromatin of proteins, you end up with DNA, which is the genetic material. And that's what gets chopped and changed in genetic engineering. And the rationale behind genetic engineering is basically what is called the central dogma of molecular biology, due to the Pope of molecular biology, Francis Crick, who shared the Nobel Prize with Jim Watson for working out the double helical structure of DNA. So according to the central dogma, the DNA carries all the genetic instructions for making an organism, and individual messages in the DNA is faithfully copied into RNA, which is another kind of nucleic acid. And then the RNA is translated into protein according to the so-called genetic code. And the protein determines a particular trait of the organism, as for example, herbicide tolerance or insect resistance. So that's basically what's inspired genetic engineering. And if things were as simple as that, a kind of a linear causal chain with one gene determining one character, then genetic engineering, genetic modification would work perfectly every time. Unfortunately, things are not that simple, and that's where the problems lie. So these are the general hazards of GMOs. And there are three general kinds. The first is due to uncontrollable, unpredictable effects, because the genetic modification process is a hit or miss business. So what it can do is that not only do the GM inserts, the synthetic DNA that you put in, it can get rearranged, truncated, or duplicated. It can also scramble the host genome rather badly. It causes widespread mutations or changes in the DNA. They can inactivate genes, or they can activate genes, including those associated with cancer. It can create new transcripts, new RNAs with regulatory roles, creating also, it can create new unintended proteins that could be immunogenic. It could create new metabolites that may be toxic. And it could activate resident viruses. Remember the lecture you just heard before lunch? They're there all the time. They create new viruses also by recombination of the viral genes in the GM insert with those in the host genome. The second kind of hazards are due.
And she wrote papers on this stuff back in 2000, the early 2000s. When the original SARS came out, she was like, nah, She was like one of the science whistleblowers. Like, no. This thing is genetically engineered, and it has a lot of the markers.
Due to potential effects of the transgenic proteins introduced. So these proteins, even if they were harmless in the original organism, could become immunogenic, could become allergens or bad immunogens. And they could create new proteins that may be immunogenic as well. The third kind of hazards are effects due to the GM insert and its instability. Basically, the synthetic genes, the synthetic genetic material you put in is not stable at all. They could rearrange as you grow the GM crop in subsequent generations. So all this risk assessment, even if they do it properly, will be useless anyways. And because there will be further unpredictable effects generated. And most of all, and most underplayed, are horizontal gene transfer. Basically, the synthetic DNA being unstable could jump out again and jump into the genome of organisms that interact with the GMO, including humans eating the genetic material, for example.
So if you're genetically engineering a crop, you can create synthetic viruses that crop up out of nowhere. Pun intended.
And this horizontal gene transfer and recombination is a main route to spreading antibiotic resistance genes and creating new viruses and bacteria that cause diseases. It could also create mutations in the genomes of cells to which the GM inserts are transferred, including cancer. Now, just to take the example of the high lysine maize, what are the serious hazards that are unique to it? Well, this lysine, high lysine maize has 50 times more free lysine. Lysine is an amino acid, and 110 times more lysine derivatives than normal. Now, this is basically because normally in a balanced, normal.
Should I skip forward and get to the Terminator gene part, or should I Terminator gene? It kind of all goes together, though. It's like an entire lesson. So I didn't. That's hard. I should have just started playing this earlier, but here we go.
Food was sterile. I mean, you don't actually have to do the statistics. You can just look at the difference between the litter. You can guess which one was the litter that was fed GM soya. Okay, this is famous Akpat Pustai, Dr. Akpat Pustai and Dr. Stanley Ewing. Yes, I think they deserve applause for what they've done for us. They managed only to publish their results partially in The Lancet. The Lancet editor was intimidated, but he published it anyway. So now, you know, those people who are responsible for promoting GM, who are foisting GM crops on the third world, basically, they are committed. Only you get predisposed to cancer, but your children and your children's children may also.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to stop it there. I'll have to play the whole video at some point. I do have this article real quick. I'll just sum it up. Pretty much, you have the when I was talking about earlier, you had the mouse, then you had the cat spike. And the reason she thought the SARS virus was originally genetically engineered in a lab, because it was kind of a tweener. You had 3 different groups of coronaviruses: group 1, group 2, and group 3. And the mouse is in group 2 and the cat's in group 3. And the virus, the SARS-CoV, the original one, was a tweener, and it had like both some feline and mouse the spikes to it. And she's like, what's going on here? And so she started digging in more, and she found out the papers that I just showcased to you guys, where they developed an infectious or they cloned a DNA using infectious RNA. They created the envelope to go around the RNA, and then they got the technology developed to the point where they could add the spikes to it. And that's where you get into the different species with the spikes. And this was all done before 2003, by the year 2000, before the original SARS outbreak happened. And she's head of the Department of Science in Hong Kong. And she got a firsthand look at the virus, and she said, nuh-uh. So the original SARS was genetically engineered in a lab. SARS-CoV-2 was genetically engineered in a lab. Not only that, if it's an RNA virus, if they're trying to affect your DNA through RNA on the front end with the virus, and then they're bringing in the vaccine on the back end also, and they're giving you a jab with the virus, some RNA vaccines. It's like, if that's not the deep state pushing to mess with your DNA and your genomics, I don't know what is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after this short break here, we're going to have our very next journalist join us. The lovely Wendy's World. It's Wendy's Sloan's World. It's party time. It's happening. Oh, I just saw like the viewers go from like 13 to 20 when I started singing. I should start singing some more on the podcast. You know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? All right, we're just having some fun here. She does have a guest coming on the show here, and I look forward to the interview. Hey, where are you at? Christopher Ray. Guest Christopher Ray will be joining Wendy's World after this break.
Welcome to World War DARPA. This is George Webb, and I've been going all over the world to different bioweapons plants in England, Porton Down. Of course, I've done DynCorp here in the United States and Indianapolis, chasing all these pathogens and rare diseases that seem to be brokered to the Ukrainians from our own DOD, from our own technology companies, and also Fort Detrick, where we did a lot of these pathogens. And they ended up in places like Ukraine, and they may be now deployed in places like Ukraine on this front line of NATO in this NATO battle. There's secret vaccines that have been in the works that are being controlled by Ukrainian billionaires, and diseases of old are now made new again with these chimeric new diseases. So there's a lot in this book about USAID, of course, with Predict, the Hunter Biden connection with Metabiota. And of course, we have all the shell companies that the Russian Ministry of Defense has talked about, and Gilead, of course, developing vaccines, the connection to Hunter Biden, MI6, Christopher Steele, the Chinese Foreign Information Industries, the 336 different labs the U.S. and the DOD has built around the world, and of course, the connection to the blackberries. History is repeated now from 1943, right now in Kiev. The Cossack dancer himself, Christopher Steele, giving pathogens for these crazy bioweapons programs to migrate bats with ticks and fleas and mosquitoes, as well as migratory birds, believe it or not. So we cover all the details, and of course, the ever-present Klaus Schwab is there. I go over all the different appearances I've made and the books I've written to cover the topic, and all new, all updated. So if you bought the existing book, you're going to see all new graphics and a new update, and it's going to be about 1/5 the price of the old book. So this is going to be an audio-visual book. You're going to get all these new graphics, all these new updates of gathering of information from various.
Go.
Hello, welcome to Wendy's World. This is episode number 13, and I'm Wendy Lee Sloan, and today is April 20th, 2022, and our episode is called, What Would You Do If They Came After You? We know that a lot's going on in the world, and we want to invite our guests, if they're ready. We have Norman Lee Smith today as my co-host, and then we also have Christopher Key when is there. Just let us know. Oh, there you are. Hi, Christopher.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, Chris.
We're both coming.
Christopher, you can't call me Chris. If you call me Chris, Grandma will come find you at night. Christ is in me, is in my name, brother.
Christopher Key.
There you go.
Brother. Much
Well,
respect.
welcome. We're from sunny North Carolina, and you're from sunny Alabama today, I hope.
I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. Yes.
Very good. And we met each other at the Red Pill event in November 2022 in Lafayette. No, 20, 2021. We haven't had November yet, quite yet. We met there in Lafayette, Louisiana.
We did at the Red Pill event. There was great vendors, great speakers, a lot of really good people there in Louisiana. And a lot of people don't realize in Louisiana, it's the first state that they're trying to mandate that every single child takes this bioweapon. And we had a huge meeting, right in December, where over 2,000 people showed up, and we testified before the House. And when we walked into that meeting, going in, it was 16-0 that they were going to vaccinate all of God's children. But when they heard all the testimonials, we won 14-2. It was shot down. But then within an hour, the governor, I can't think of his last name, but anyway, he said that he didn't care about the people. He didn't care what everybody said, but he was going to mandate that every single child takes this bioweapon. But this just shows that this is worse in California, in California, New York, in Louisiana. And they know if they can take down and allow this to happen, everybody else will follow. So people need to wake up and speak up and stand up. And that's what we show people with the vaccine police, is how to take action.
Okay. So let me just go over like the way that we usually work things on the show. We talk a little bit about what's in the news, and then we're going to talk about the vaccine police, which is your cause and what you've been doing. And then we want to know, a little bit about you, how you're brought up and your influences and how you organize your day, and then what you like to do for fun. And then we talk about what's going to go on next week. Is that good with you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And we start off with, there's two quotes we got today. One of them I actually used last week. In an age of universal deceit, speaking the truth becomes a revolutionary act. And that was from George Orwell. And then Martin Luther King said, we may all have come on different ships, but we're now in the same boat. We're in the same boat now, meaning that there's a lot of things going on that we're facing as Americans and also humans throughout the world, because this is not just a United States problem that we see with the vaccines per se, and it's happening. This global cabal is influencing unchristian, unsoulfully the whole human race, what they're doing.
Very true.
Yep. So we're going to, first thing in the news is the end of the federal mask mandates. I know that just recently on Rumble, Amazing Polly just did a little episode about this, but people were cheering that they no longer had to wear the mask on the planes, and some people are still choosing to wear them as they have control over their own body, which they're able to do. But the majority of people are very glad that there's the end to this, because it was a choice of sticking up for what they believed in, not to be able to be free to wear the mask versus going to see grandma, family, friends, or for work. What are you guys thinking about that?
Guys, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I never wore the mask. It seemed obvious to me that self-suffocation is not the answer to anything. It didn't protect you from any nanoparticles, and it seems such a redundant, idea that I never participated, but maybe twice whenever I felt like I really wanted to make a purchase, I was sort of, I had to violate my own principles and actually do it. But for the most part, I did not participate in the mask thing.
Well, guys, I will never, ever cover my face. I've already been to jail twice because of it, because I am a Christian, and I have studied history. I've studied the Word of God, and you can't go preach God's Word if your face is covered. Nobody can hear anything. They can't hear anything you say if your face is covered. And what you have to understand about this is very demonic. It's very satanic. It's very Luciferian. If you understand anything about Satanism, the first thing they always do before they do any sacrifice, they always cover their face. They always cover their face. They always stand 6 feet on the left, 6 feet on the right, 6 feet in front and back. 6, 6, 6. Why do you think it was 6 feet? You don't think, think about that, guys. And nobody has talked about this. This is complete, total Satanism. And our Christian family has bought into this. Guys, there's so many, they've passed these laws, but there's still going to be people out there because fear is a huge motivator. Fear is such a huge motivator. And they know this. They studied the human psychology. Sigmund Freud figured everything out, and they knew fear is a huge motivator. And when you have all these different pandemics and plandemics and everything else, people will bow down because most of the people are a bunch of sheep. They're completely, totally programmed from the telelie vision. You know why they call it the telelie vision? Because it lies, it lies, it lies. You know why they call it TV programming? They're programming your mind to their narrative, which is completely, totally satanic, is completely, totally Luciferian. And people have to wake up and quit bowing down, quit allowing them to tell you what to do. Wake up from hypnosis. Use your critical thinking skills. People, wake up. That's all. Wake the heck up, guys. Because the masks are coming back. Right now, the only reason why they're pulling these masks off right now is because we got the election. And they want to get on everybody's good side. But as soon as the election, the masks are coming back down. We're going to have a new pandemic and everything. Everybody's going to bow down and allow it to happen again. So please use your critical thinking skills, guys.
Okay.
I agree.
Next topic in the news. I agree with you. And I didn't really think about the 666. Makes perfect sense to me. Why did they arbitrarily pick that number?
Hey, real quick, let me tell you. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that, but it never hit me until I went to church with my daughter. I went to church with my daughter, and I walk into this church, and they had these signs right over the sanctuary, 666. And I'm like, holy cow, why am I the only one seeing this? I'm walking into the church, and 6 feet away, 6 feet away, 6 feet away, 666. And then I started doing research on it and realized that's all satanic worship.
Okay. All right. Next thing in the news, Texas sends illegals to DC. Did you see that in the news? So a bus arrives in DC. There was people that came out. They said somebody said they were going to go to Miami. Now they're free. They can go wherever they want. Some people said they were going to go stay with friends. Of course, the White House responds to that and says, "Oh, they're free. They're already checked in. They got their court date. They can go wherever they want." And then Texas says they might send some to Delaware, to Joe Biden's home state. And then, of course, Governor DeSantis responds to that and says, "No, you guys can't come here." So what do you think about that? In the human condition, people want good for themselves, but in our culture, you got to follow the rules, and there's a procedure for coming to our country.
And guys, they're bringing these illegal immigrants in because they know that the people, the police and whatnot will not turn. Well, some of them will, but for the most part, they won't turn on their own people. But these illegal immigrants, they will be so happy to turn a gun on us and blow our head off and shoot us. And that's why they're allowing all these immigrants to come in and just allowing them to have free reign. And then plus they want to use them to vote and rig the system even more once we try to get it back to paper ballots. So this is all a ploy to make sure this communist takeover is implemented and this new world will come to be the new world religion, the new world currency, and the new world order.
I agree. I think they're doing it for nefarious purposes because it undermines the rule of law. And, it's becoming more and more like the wild, wild west. Civilization, if we're truly civilized, we need it. And there is something to be said for law and order. I mean, it's not a perfect ideal, but it does, give you some sense of balance and measurement and justice in this world. But these days, if the laws aren't enforced, then it's really and you don't know your rights, then it's almost like we don't have them anymore. So it's hard to tell what's really going, it seems like it's all woo. There's no rule of law, only discovery.
Yes. People want the best for their children and for themselves and for their community. And a city can't plan the right infrastructure, can't plan the right amount of housing for people if just arbitrarily people are just dumped on their doorsteps by buses. And what happens a lot of times is that hotels are taken over, and a lot of times these hotels are wrecked. And then a lot of times when there's groups of immigrants or illegal immigrants are not following the rules that are put out there for people to legally come to our country, a lot of times they become little zones where even some of the local police don't want to get involved with. So there is a lot a lot of issues with this going on, and it just seems like it's getting worse. And of course, it's planned. It's not an accident.
All this is pre-planned. They have orchestrated this well over a couple hundred years. They have an A plan, a B plan. They go to Z, and then they go to the Roman numerals. These satanic individuals are using demonic entities to help them move their agenda, I believe.
Okay, next on the news, watching the vaccine patents, and then the last topic is going to be about the ballot harvesting. Let's just skip over the vaccine issue for a moment, the ballot harvesting scheme, because it really relates to allowing all these illegals to come here. There's people that don't understand our culture, and that when things and issues are put forward, even if they had the right to vote, they don't understand the issues to really choose best for themselves and their families, because they don't understand the language sometimes, or the little nuances in politicians' talking points. Do you agree with that?
Well, again, many people have been brought up, you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. And you have to understand, these are no different than the Bloods and the Crips, the Republicans and the Democrats. Okay. This is all about divide and conquer. They all wanted us, fighting about, he's a Republican, she's a Democrat, he's black, she's white. Guys, this is an evil empire. This is all the bankers. This is all big pharma, big oil that is ruling everything. And we're fussing and fighting about an election that we know was stolen. And again, even if it wasn't stolen, the same puppet would be in there anyway. And Trump was a puppet, and so was Biden's a puppet. They're all puppets. You don't get into that point of power, my belief, unless you're bought and paid for. But that's my personal opinion.
Okay, so the Epic Times, the gentleman Roman is his first name, that he exposed he had a guest on the Watchdog newspaper. They were saying that they've really caught them in 6 states, plus 6 states, more than 6 states, but they were really focusing on 6 states. What they were doing, of course, they had mules taking the ballots to drop off points, and then they were able to, by cell phones, ping the amount of same IP. I guess our Chris Hunter, our IP hunter, would love this story, that they were able to see the same people going to the ballots. And then, of course, then there was surveillance. So they were able, the facts are out there now that this was a corrupt system of ballot harvesting, just a total scheme. And people were being paid, the mules were being paid like sometimes $10 per ballot that they filled out or delivered.
I believe it goes way deeper than that. And I'm going to have a story in the next week where, it goes more into what was going on in Italy, and it gets really crazy. But I'll bring more of an expert on to talk about that, because I don't know enough about it to talk intelligently enough.
Yeah, there's a lots of aspects to how the election was stolen.
Yes, there was.
For even some of the ballots being gone through the machines more than once, to some just electronically just stop, the voting machine stopped and then new figures were just advertised or shown on the screen. There's a lot of different things, different ways that it was done.
Well, that's why we never need a machine. That's why everything needs to be paper. When you have a machine, anybody can switch a switch and change anything. And we've shown this over and over again. There's been hearings on this, and they know this. And that's why they wanted to make sure, they had this in their control to be able to turn a switch. And I went to bed that night and I thought everything was done. And I wake up and like, how in the hell did this happen? How did this happen? There's no way.
Right. And we knew just from seeing Trump's amount of people, the support he had at rallies, and then the support that Biden had, it just seemed like a no-brainer. It just seemed that Trump won. Go ahead, Norman.
Well, this story is good news to me because it shows that the mining of metadata is a dual-use technology that can indeed be used for good. If this story pans out to be accurate, then just like they used technology to distort the numbers, it looks like technology can also be used to correct the record and go through, with a proper audit and cleanup, that there might be hope for election integrity after all, so that I kind of lose this disenfranchised feeling that my vote doesn't count that I've had ever since the last election.
Well, I've never voted and I never will vote because I've studied the system, and the way the system is, it's completely broken. I'm so happy that Biden was elected because I believe this was the best thing to wake people up. Because of this happening, so many more people have woken up and realized what is going on. I love COVID. COVID's been a blessing to me because for 23 years, everybody thought I was a crazy nut. And now people are beginning to finally question the narrative. They're finally starting to ask the questions that, oh my gosh, how do they make this vaccine within 12 months? How do they do this? You know, what's in this vaccine? People are finally starting to use their critical thinking skills. There's not a lot of them, but there's a lot more now than there's ever been in the history of the world, I believe. And this has been a blessing that they've done this. But that scares me because they had us so asleep. They could have wrote out their plan. I don't know why they've done that. And that's what scares me because I know they have a plan to the plan to the plan.
I agree with you, Christopher, that it is a phony choice, the left-right paradigm. And every time I walk into the voting booth, I have to hold my nose. But it's just a act of civic duty because I was told, they taught me in school that it was like, you know, something sacred. And I tried to keep it as such, but it's pretty disheartening when you realize that we really have a false choice.
Well, sadly with me, anything I was told to do my whole life, I always did the opposite. I don't know why God made me that way, but I've always challenged authority. I know I have. I don't know what it is. No, I do know what it is. We'll talk about this later.
Oh, okay. And I agree with you. I know your sentiment about that it's a broken system and why vote. Although on the other hand, with so many people voting for Trump, they had to change their algorithms. So even the fractional voting or however, you know, how they determined how many people should vote and then what percentage is going to go to Biden to Trump, they had to stop the election to rig it because enough people still voted for Trump. And so their algorithms didn't even work. So that is, I can see is one advantage of people going and showing their choice.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. So we started talking a little bit about then the vaccine. What came in the news, Watch the Water, that documentary that came out. And then I want to say watch the confusion because it seems like some people are trying to smear the work of Dr. Ardis, or they're commenting about what he's saying without understanding or even watching the videos. And that it's really, he's not saying that everybody got bit or they're actually putting something in the water. It's people aren't getting bit by snakes. It's that there's a synthetic venom that's been added as a spike protein. And when I listened, I didn't get that he was saying that they're putting it in the water. They did test it to see the black water or the sewage water, and they saw that it was in that water. And so then sometimes when they filter it, maybe it doesn't filter all out. I think that was more the point. Is that what your understanding was, Chris?
Well, again, it's very possible and probable. I had an interview 2 days ago with a young lady who has the diagrams that shows where they have two lines for the water, and with the flick of the switch, they can put something into my water if they so choose to. And that technology is there. Are they utilizing it? I don't know, but I know the capability is there, and I know it's very possible. It's very probable. Was it utilized in this? I don't know. We're working on analyzing that. We're working on looking at the water to see, you know, if that is truth. But when you look at what he talked about as far as the drugs and whatnot that have snake venom in there, that have it derived from snake venom, those are all almost rock solid. I mean, that is truth. And you can't deny that. You can't deny that. So, you know, one of the things anybody out there listening, and I've been screaming about this for many years, is they are poisoning us regardless of it being snake venom. Your water has poisons on it. You can go to my website, and I have a little link where you can go and you can test your water, and it will show you how many toxic chemicals above the EPA limits are in every single one of your waters. And the government's allowing this to happen. And that's illegal. That's unlawful. It's been on the book since 1972. They were supposed to fix this. They haven't fixed it. That is 6 felony crimes against everybody that's allowed this to happen. And that's another project we have going on right now where we're serving all these officials and whatnot that's allowed this to happen, because we, the people, are being poisoned with the water. And it may not be snake venom, but I can promise you there's hundreds of other different chemicals that are in your tap water every single day that you're drinking in parts per billion. And the first one to start with is freaking fluoride. I mean, fluoride right there. We know it's toxic. We know how toxic it is. And then chlorine. Chlorine, if you go to Walmart right now, buy chlorine, it's got skulls and bones. And there's so many other simple ways to purify your water without using these toxic chemicals. And they know about it, but they don't want you to have a healthy temple, because if you have a healthy temple, you can go preach God's word, and they don't want you to do that. They want you to be docile. They want you to bow down. They want you to fall in line and be a good little sheep and go along to get along.
Amen.
Any comment?
Yeah, the I've known for a long time about fluoride in water, and there's nothing good about hydrofluorosilicic acid being put into the water systems of almost every municipality, and we don't even know everything they put in the water. So I think Watch the Water should be a high protocol for every community. Actually, they should be testing frequently and documenting who actually manages these systems. And there should be highly documented every chemical that taxpayers' money is spent on to put these chemicals in. We should have a comprehensive understanding of what the purpose is. And I bet if we knew what the purpose of it is, we wouldn't like the answer. But I don't think it's for our health and well-being.
If you haven't seen, Dr. Artis did a great interview with Stu Peters, but it was only an hour long. He went back to a 3-part interview with Mike Adams where they went awesome. way more in depth, a lot of really good documents, a lot more information and whatnot. If you haven't seen that one, I strongly encourage you. But my question to anybody out there, why are there blueprints that show 2 lines of water in every municipality? And if you go in and try to get these, they will redact them. And I have the unredacted lines to show that they are doing something with the water. A lot of legislation, a lot of laws changed regarding the water in the 70s, which is very interesting. And I strongly encourage you guys to go listen to the interview I did with the woman that broke this story a little over 12 years ago. She broke it on Alex Jones's show, and within 1 hour, Alex Jones pulled the interview. I have the interview back up on my my Telegram page, along with an hour-long interview we did with her 3 days ago. And it's very interesting to show that the capability of putting toxins in your water. They can specifically say they want to put it in your household and not the rest of the people. The capability is there. I know that sounds crazy, that sounds sci-fi, but we have all the documents to prove this.
Whoa.
Wow. So what do you recommend people do for drinking water? This is your personal opinion. What do you say?
For drinking water, water's been a huge passion of mine for my entire life. I used to be a huge component of Kangen water because it was a medical device in Japan for over 35 years. It was negatively charged. It had alkaloids for the human body. It had a high pH of 9.5. It had hydrogen in it. But then I went to Synergy. It's another wonderful water. But just in the last month, I found a plumber, and this plumber has the most pure water in the world. It's called pH Prescription. His water, he takes all the chemicals out. One thing I hate about Kangen is they couldn't take the fluoride out because they say it was dead water. Well, this guy strips all the toxins out, and then he completely, totally wipes the memory of the water. Then he adds all the good minerals back to it. Then he adds hydrogen to it, and then he puts it back into your home. And it's a full filtration system for your entire home. They have a unit that you put under your sink. This, I believe, is the purest water out there. And I'm all about taking care of your temple. And I tell people, don't believe anything I say because I'm a crazy nut, but do what the Lord commands you to do, and that is test and prove all things. Not some things, but all things, because water is the most abundant substance in your body. So it wouldn't be a good idea to take the most pure water you put into the cells? My belief is yes. And then I believe one of the simplest things to purify your water, if you do have toxic chemicals, is chlorine dioxide, and that's gotten me in so much trouble. I don't know if you guys know much about chlorine dioxide, but Dr. Manuel Aparicio went on the Stu Peters show less than 9 months ago and told the world that him and his team of over 5,000 medical doctors had cured, I didn't say it, Manuel Aparicio said it, cured over 500,000 people that had COVID with chlorine dioxide. Remember when President Trump was talking about drinking bleach? This is what he was talking about. This is what he was talking about. Mark Grennan, a good friend of mine, him and his 3 sons have been in prison now for 600 plus days because of why they were giving away chlorine dioxide. And I give away chlorine dioxide every single day. If anybody wants access to it to purify their body, which I believe it does, purify their water, I believe it does, but I will never tell anybody to take it. I take it myself every single day, but I would never tell anybody out there to take it. But if you want it, you send a text to 205-936-9803 and we will ship it out to you for free.
Okay, and that gentleman was at the Red Pill event, I believe. I talked to him, and he's the one that was joking and said he's probably the one who got President Trump in trouble for his comments.
Well, no, that was Bob. Right. That was Bob the plumber. But Mark Grennan is the one that's been in prison now for 600 plus days. Him and his 3 sons for giving away chlorine dioxide as a sacrament to their church. They came in 600 plus days ago and locked them up. SWAT team helicopter over the house because they had chlorine dioxide, a water purification system, and locked them down.
Wow! So much for separation of church and state.
Hey, what about speedy trial? What about a speedy trial? 600 days, no trial whatsoever.
Wow.
Is he trying to, are they using something from the Patriot Act to justify?
Well, what happened was he was in Colombia, I think it was Colombia, and his 2 sons, they came over with the SWAT team helicopter and busted down the door and arrested his 2 sons. Him and his other son was in Colombia. And he called him and said, what's going on? Do I need to come back to America? What's going on? And no comment. And then a month later, the Colombian authorities brought a helicopter in, their SWAT team kicked down the door and arrested him. And he was in prison with his son for 500 plus days. And they were saying he was fighting extradition, but they extradited his son. And now his son's back in America in Miami, Florida with the other 2 sons, but they're saying he's fighting extradition. And that's why they haven't had a trial. They haven't had a trial because they know we will win. They know chlorine dioxide is one of the most amazing products on the market to help alkalize and oxygenate the human body. That there's thousands and upon hundreds of thousands of testimonials to show this. And they don't want this to go to court. So they're just trying to put just out there as long as they can and hope that it goes away.
So on the scale, good, bad water, I don't know if reversing, I think it's like flipped in the my picture, but how does spring water compare to what you were talking about? If you buy a bottle of spring water, like for me, I usually get Public spring water in a gallon.
Well, guys, I trust no publicly traded corporations. Publicly traded corporations have to do one thing and one thing only. They have to make money for their stockholders, and they're going to cut every single cost they can. And if you don't understand anything about the Truth in Labeling Act, that showed you that they didn't have to have any truth. It's about not telling any truth. So if they say it's spring water, it can be freaking dirt water. It can be toilet water. You have no idea because nobody polices these water companies. Nobody polices these supplement companies. Nobody polices the CDC. Nobody polices the FDA, the AMA. That's why I created the Vaccine Police for us, we the people, to hold these tyrants accountable, to force them to tell their truth, which is our truth, because they're poisoning God's people and God's children. And this has to stop. It has to stop now. So, if you have to buy bottled water, through my research, if I was in a pinch and I needed to buy some water, Smart Water would be right there at maybe one of the top ones. And then the what's the other one called? The Italian one. I can't think of it because I hadn't bought water. I can't think of that. I can't think of the other one. But guys, one of the biggest things with water is it's in plastic. Okay, BPA plastic.
Right.
BPA plastic, heats up to 100, 110 degrees, and then that BPA is leaching into the water. And even if it's not hot, that water is still going to leach the BPAs. That's why we got freaking men now that have no idea who they are, and they're completely, totally feminized by design. That's why we got little boys that don't know if they're a boy or a he or a she or a bird. We got people identifying freaking dogs and cats. I mean, it's crazy. We've lost our brains, because of these toxic chemicals, guys. They are poisoning us with the water. They're poisoning us with the food. They're poisoning us with the supplements. They're poisoning us in the air. They're poisoning us every single way and twice on Sunday. And that's why your listeners have to educate themselves. Don't believe anything we say today, but go research, guys. Start reading. Leaders are readers. Begin to research and read, okay? Quit believing everything you see on the television.
Right. And the CDC, who is supposedly the organization that's supposed to have people's health foremost in their minds, that's not true. They are just a group, really. A lot of the patents now are owned by the CDC. And so right now, the vaccine patents, two names, Drew Weissman and Caitlin Carrico, are in the news as being some of the developers of the mRNA technology inside the COVID vaccines. And I don't know if you've have you heard of the name of Virginia Benassi?
Virginia Benassi.
No? Okay, I was just wondering. It's some of our researchers did some research on that particular person as having their fingers in the research grant process. I was just wondering if you would, but right now, yep, on the screen there is Caitlin and Drew Weissman.
Let's go into the mRNA technology. Everybody loves the mRNA technology. Let me tell you a little bit about the mRNA technology. This is not new technology. In 1962, they discovered mRNA technology, and they said, look, this will change vaccines as we know it. The ferrets had the closest thing to a human immune system of any other animal on the market. So that they gave the MMR technology to the ferrets, and they got the best antibody response they'd ever got in the history of the world. They're like, this will change vaccines forever. But then, guys, they exposed those ferrets to the live virus in nature, and every single one of them died. And that's why it didn't make it to market in 62 or 72 or 82 or 92 or 2002 or 2012 or 2018. But then at warp speed with no animal trials, they began to experiment on you. And they told you right there, this is an experimental vaccine. And people lined up in droves to take this. And in Alabama, within 3 months of this vaccine making the market, we had a whistleblower that signed an affidavit that said 45,000 people within 3 days of taking this bioweapon dropped dead. They dropped dead. There's an injunction and has been, but no judge will look at it to stop all these bioweapons in Alabama. But everybody's scared to death to be the one to allow this to go to court because they know that the cat's out of the bag, and they know they are going to be hung just like those in Nazi Germany. They can't cover this up any longer, guys. The death that is coming, my medical doctors told me the people that take this bioweapon will be dead in 2 to 5 years. 2 to 5 years. And it's happening. It's happening right now on the VAERS report. It's showing as of today that 26,000 plus people have dropped dead within a few days of taking this bioweapon. And we know from the Harvard study that less than 1% of the population actually reports, because it's so hard to report to VAERS. And then the mainstream media will say, well, it's inaccurate. It's inaccurate. Yeah, it's inaccurate, but it's inaccurate at only 1% report. If it was accurate, it'd be more like 2.6 million people are dead, guys. I mean, look at those graphs.
Yep.
Oh.
Over 1 million adverse reactions to this bioweapon. But yeah, we got people that are so freaking stupid, they're lining up to get their 4th booster. How can you be that freaking brainwashed? If it didn't work the first time, if it didn't work the second time, it didn't work the 3rd time, you're going to inject a 4th one in, do you?
I know. So let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to learn a little bit more about you, your upbringing, your influences, and how you became such a rebel and standing up for the truth. Were you always this way? As soon as you talked, like, no? Was that your favorite word when you were 2?
Well, guys, it's funny. I was somehow or another, we got to talking about this and started thinking about this. And I really think this all started with me when I was 5 years old. And I'll never forget this. I was always a very fun, outgoing kid. I loved all my friends and everything. And my parents started me kindergarten early. And that was a whole mistake. And it's a whole nother story. But they started me early in kindergarten. And I was so excited. I was so excited to go to kindergarten because, I love being around people. I love talking to everybody and whatnot. So I get to kindergarten, first day of kindergarten. I'm meeting all these friends, having the time of my life. I mean, it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is unbelievable. And it comes to be 12 o'clock and the teacher says, it's time to take a nap.
Oh no.
I said, "Do what? Time to take a what? A nap." I said, "What the hell's a nap? I'd never taken a nap a day in my life. I got up when I got up and I went to bed when Mama told me to go to bed, take a nap." I said, "No, I ain't taking no nap." So that teacher, the first day of school, I'm having the time of my life, put me in the doghouse in front of everybody. And
Shamed.
I think that was where authority, I had no respect for authority ever again after that. And, but again, I'm respectful. I'm very respectful. My father and my mother have trained me very well. My father's always pushed me very, very hard to be the best that I can. And, always, telling me to get better. And that's what I've always strived to because, I wanted to be the best version of Christopher I could because I wanted to make my Heavenly Father proud. And, one of the things that really bothered me as a child is my father came to me one day and said, "Christopher, you're different than me." I'm like, "Different from me? All I wanted to do was be my dad and emulate my father." And he said, "Look, you're a leader." Wow. Okay. I didn't know what it was to be a leader, but that day, because I didn't want to disappoint my father, I became a leader. And I've been a leader ever since. And, I've always been very outspoken. I've always questioned authority. I've always questioned everything because my ninth grade English teacher, I was always that kid that always asked question after question after question. Everybody couldn't stand me in school because they're like, "Oh God, Christopher's going to keep us over." And I never forget, I was in English class and I'd said something and everybody just, "Christopher, shut up." And Miss Massey said, "Christopher," in front of the entire class, she said, "Look, please understand there is no such thing as a stupid question." She said, "Christopher, never stop asking those questions." Guys, you thought I asked a lot of questions before then? Oh my God, when she told me that, I said, Miss Massey told me I could ask questions. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to ask every question because, guys, how do you learn anything if you don't ask questions? I mean, I've always been that child that, you said do it this way. Why? Or I have to do this. Why? If you can give me a good, solid answer of why, and you can show me the evidence to back it up, okay. I love it when I'm wrong. Chris is like, you just want to be right. No, I love it when I'm wrong because when I'm wrong, I've learned something and I want to learn. I want to know everything that I can possibly know because I know that I'm dumber than dirt because there's so much to learn. That's what drives me crazy about these medical doctors and all these people that think they know everything. Really? You think you know everything? Seriously? You know how much knowledge there is in the universe? We haven't even begun to touch a fraction of it. And these doctors that say they're practicing medicine, this is what drives me crazy. Why do we put so much faith in a man and woman that practices medicine? Would you ever go to a plumber that was practicing how to fix a toilet? You wouldn't. Would you go to a mechanic that was practicing how to fix a car? You wouldn't. So why do we put so much faith in these men and women that openly tell you they are practicing medicine and they're practicing on you and they don't know how to do it? And if you look
and
at
a lot of things, a lot of things is your mind, and they don't spend enough time really studying the placebo effect. Me as a hypnotist, there's so much medical hypnosis going on. Just because somebody wears a white coat, now there's enough, a person, that they've gone to school, they've been around clients, so they have some wisdom. But do you trust what this person is saying, especially now when everything is funded and their knowledge nowadays is just skewed one direction because of who's paying for those wings in those schools and the hospitals, and it's the pharmaceutical companies. So and the bankers that own them, right? So it's skewed. It's not even true knowledge. Because people aren't testing things like they used to, and they don't study the mind because how are they going to put a price tag on the mind and changing your thoughts or just eating healthy, right? There's a difference between pharmacy and things that come from the farm. as you were saying.
Again, that's so very true. I mean, it's all about pharmakia, and it's all sorcery. And it is. I think we're in mass hypnosis right now, and they've used the telelive vision to program people to do their bidding. And it is very sad, and that's why people have to, turn the telelive vision off, go outside and get in the microbiome, get out in the dirt, get out in God's sun. Quit believing the freaking sun causes cancer. It does not cause cancer in any form of the fashion. It gives you energy. It energizes the human body, and they've done everything they could to take all of God's special elements and all what's of God away from us to make us believe that we need a petroleum-based pill. Wake up, guys. Your body does not need petroleum. Ever does it need petroleum and it sure as hell doesn't need a vaccine. I mean, you got an immune system, guys. Your immune system, God built it to fight off disease, and you don't need these bioweapons. I mean, do you understand that in 1986, Ronald Reagan passed the Vaccine Injury Act that exempt all vaccine companies of any and all liability? Wouldn't you love to have a company that you were exempt of any and all liability? And they wouldn't take it a step further. Then they mandated that everybody buy their product. I mean, that is a gold mine. I mean, I want 2 of those companies, by God. And then we realized that in 2010, that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that all vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. Unavoidably unsafe. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled this, and they're basically saying, look, if you're stupid enough to put these bioweapons into your body, tough crap, you got to deal with this because we told you they're unavoidably unsafe. And then to take it a step further, in 2018, Robert Kennedy Jr., that they sued HHS, Health and Human Services, to release the safety study. See, Ronald Reagan said, look, in 1986, if we're going to exempt them of any and all liability and we're going to mandate that everybody buy the product, we got to hold them accountable, okay? We're going to hold them accountable, but we're not going to make them do safety studies every year. We're going to make them do safety studies every other year. So they sued them to release the safety studies, and they got the paperwork back. And guess how many safety studies they've done since 1986?
Probably none. How many?
Not one single safety study, guys. 0. But yet you hear on the telelive vision every single day, they're safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe. It don't matter how many times you say it, how fast you say it. I promise you, they are not safe and effective. And this is what drives me crazy about Peter McCullough and Dr. Malone and these guys that we think are on our side. They are telling you that, yes, this COVID vaccine is very, very bad. But all the other ones, they are perfectly fine. They are safe. They're effective. No, they're not. They are lying to you. There is not one vaccine on the market that should ever be injected into any child. And you got these other people that are saying, they're just for safer vaccines. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you with science right now, there is no safe vaccine. They are all bioweapons. It is all toxic chemicals that are being put into your body to cause ill effects to the human temple so that you have to be relying on their pharmakia for the rest of your life.
It's shameful. Yeah, it's a crying shame. We speak about informed consent, but one thing we didn't get with Operation Warp Speed was any information. It was just kind of opened up out and laid out there's an experiment on humanity, and it's definitely a violation of the Nuremberg Code to experiment on human beings. So they are guilty of war crimes, or crimes against humanity, I should say, and it's kind of obvious, and it's not going to go well moving forward because so many people did blindly, walk into it, and it's just sad. God doesn't make mistakes, and I'm happy to keep my God-given DNA intact, and to put my faith in that I was provided with everything I need to carry me, from the cradle to the grave. So I always say that when I die, I want my medical records to have 2 documents: a birth certificate and a death certificate. If I can succeed at that, that'll be a life well lived.
Going into the part about not knowing what's in this mRNA technology, did y'all see the videos where I went into the pharmacist and I got the package insert, and it was like a football field, and in the very middle it says intentionally blank, and all the pharmacists looked at me like, and I'm like, you're supposed to know what the ingredients are. I mean, what if there's something in here that I'm going to have some kind of, reaction to, and you have no clue? They have no clue. They had no idea. It just shows how brainwashed we are.
Yep. And I saw the video of you using an example of a watermelon and sticking in the watermelon all these different chemicals. And I think it's on slide, the picture of that is on slide number 14. Who's ever doing the slides. And so you were like, would you eat this watermelon with all these chemicals in it? No, of course not.
You wouldn't. And guys, just to talk to you real quick, we were talking about, the transvestites and whatnot. We got all these men and little boys and little girls right now. They don't know if they're a boy or a girl. Why do they not know? Because what we're doing is at birth, we're injecting in them MRC-5. MRC-5 is the aborted fetus little boy that is in your vaccines, and along with WI-38. WI-38 is the girl aborted fetus. They're taking male and female DNA, put them together, and then they're injecting it into your children. And we can't figure out why we have children now that don't know if they're a boy or girl. Well, I'm here to tell you, we do know why, because they are doing it. They're doing it by design. And the one that drives me crazy as far as vaccines, why on God's green earth would you ever inject within 24 hours of that child being born the hepatitis B vaccine? Okay, hepatitis B you can only get if you have sex or you share intravenous needles. Are the children, when they're first born, going to go back to neonatal and have a freaking orgy back there? Are they going to go back there and start injecting intravenous drugs? I mean, why? There's no reason. And not to mention, it's only good for 2 years. So then they have to give it to them again at 2 and at 4 and at 6. I mean, surely to God, your kids aren't going to have sex or share needles till they're at least 8, I hope. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's against humanity, and it's being done on purpose, and not enough people are speaking up. Norman?
Yep. I think that I'll say it again. God doesn't make mistakes, and you're either a male or a female, and anything else is a mental confusion. It would seem to be to me. But I do like your concept of the vaccine police, though, because you say you have a problem with authority, but I think you actually embody the fact that the concerned citizen is the highest authority in this land. And I'm really impressed with your enthusiasm, your faith, and your information, Christopher. And wow, just thank you so much for what you do, because it kind of buoys a lot of the ideas I have, and I'm trying to raise my game. And so just keep up your good work, because it does encourage those of us who want to do more. We get excited when we see someone doing it and doing it well. So you're really impressive.
Well, brother, I'm the least of these, but God continues to use me because I'm so stubborn, and I don't want to make my Heavenly Father unproud. Guys, let me tell you a real quick story. We know we only have a few minutes left, but why I do what I do. Okay, I do what I do. Number one, first and foremost, is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Number two is because of my children. And my children will never ever look at me and say, "Daddy, Granddaddy, why didn't you stand up to this tyranny? Why didn't you stop this?" Guys, I'm doing my part. My question is, are you doing your part? Okay. And we teach you how to take action, and you can do it from your own phone, sitting at your own sofa, where you just print out the documents from the vaccine-police.com. You print out the dossier from David Martin. You print out the affidavit from Karen Kingston. You print out the affidavit from Dr. Jane Ruby. We show you how to do your own affidavit, and you go send these certified and registered to your chief of police, to your doctor, to your superintendent, anybody that's doing ill will to God's people and God's children. You serve them these documents. You give them 48 hours to rebut this. When they don't rebut this, you then go file criminal charges against them with the sheriff. You also go file a complaint with the bonding agency and the insurance agency. This is their kryptonite, guys. We've been able to utilize this. This has been able to work. We've unmasked 2.1 million children, and we shut down pharmacies. When I go into pharmacies now, they literally shut their gate when I come in. We've shut down boards of education. But guys, let me tell you why I do this and what got me involved with this initially. Guys, I was part of 4 national championships, 3 Super Bowls, 7 consecutive championships before the government came in, seized everything I owned, shut me down, because we were helping God's people without drugs, chemicals, and surgery. And how did I get first involved with this? my greatest accomplishment in life was my twins. My twins were born 23 years ago, and I used to be a power lifter, a bodybuilder. I owned a bunch of health clubs. I had a minor in nutrition. I really knew the human temple. I thought I knew the temple amazingly well. But then my twins were born, and they were born with one of the most rare diseases on the planet called phenylketonuria, where they'll never eat protein, never eat protein the rest of their life. If they take in any protein, it becomes toxic, goes straight to the brain, and causes the most extreme mental retardation there is. The most extreme mental retardation there is. And because of that, I wanted to find a cure for them and their PKU. And God said, no, son, here's a cure for cancer, Parkinson's, diabetes. There is no disease, guys. All there is lack of cell-to-cell communication. When the cells quit communicating, it causes inflammation. The inflammation they call disease. And all you have to do is make the cells communicate again. The inflammation goes away. The disease goes away. And you just have to give the body what God intended it to have, which is real water, real food, real supplements, real herbs, real air, and real frequencies. When you do those 6 things, my belief, and we have over 35,000 terminal cancer patients, AIDS, hepatitis, TB, you name it, they can all go away. You know, you don't have to live in fear. You don't have to get that diagnosis from your doctor. He says you're going to die in 2 months, 6 months. He's not God. He has nothing to do with God. He has no idea. He doesn't know your temple. Your temple is everything. But we got to quit putting all this faith in men and give the glory to God and put what into your temple it needs. You know, you got to do your research, guys. You have so much power out there. All you have to do is take the information you've learned today and you share that with one other person. 1 turns to 2, 2 turns to 4. And before you know it, there's 7 billion people that knows what's going on. Guys, we win this. We've already won it. But they're trying to take as many souls to hell as they can. And that's why we, the people, have to stand up. We, the people, are the government. And I'm looking for people to get along with the vaccine, please, that will stand up with me, that will go serve these documents. And if you want to get involved with me, guys, all I ask for is 3 simple things. Number 1, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Number 2, we do this for all of God's people. This is not an American thing, like you said earlier. This is not about America. This is about all of God's people. And number 3, most importantly, we do this for God's children. Because, guys, we're in the midst of the 6th extinction right now. Nobody's talking about this, but 1 in 3 of our males are infertile. 1 in 4 are our females are infertile. In the animal kingdom, when it gets to be 1 in 2, that animal goes extinct. But guys, we can fix this. It's a very simple fix, but we have to get off our butts and quit bowing down to the system and allowing them to control us. And we have to stand up for our rights, stand up for our Constitution. We got to speak up and speak out and quit going along to get along. Like this mask thing you talked about with the airlines. This would have stopped overnight if everybody did what I did and said, no, we're not putting a mask on. I'm not going to put a mask on. If we would all showed up to go on a plane trip and all of us took our mask on, they would have flown that freaking trip, because they're not going to lose that money. It's all about money. It's all about power. And we have to take that power back. We have to take that power back. They've used the love of money to enslave humanity. And all we have to do is take it and turn it right back against them. And that's what we're doing with the vaccine police. All the money that's come into Christopher Key and the vaccine police, all I do is take it and give it right back out to those who are doing God's work, helping God's people, you know, putting billboards all across the country, you know, supporting Stu Peters, Mike Adams, Dr. Jane Ruby, Robert Scott Bell, the alternative news, guys. And we need your help. We can't do this by ourselves. We need funding. And I love to give away anything that I have that will help the human temple. And if you want my chlorine dioxide, if you want my pain chips, my energy chips, just send me a text. If you can make a donation, it's greatly appreciated, but it's never required, guys. I'm all about taking care of the temple and showing you guys how to take action. And that's why people can't stand me, because I'm not going to bow down. I will stand to the nth degree. I will go to jail. They can kill me. I don't care. I'm not going to bow down.
Chris, I want to ask you, because you're so busy, how do you organize your day? How do you get everything done? How do you return the phone calls? How do you, how do you organize? Are you a planner, or you just let it flow?
I'm not a planner. Well,
you're the first person that does so much that doesn't plan that I think I've met. So go ahead. There's something.
Guys, I am the most disorganized person in the world. I mean, if you look where I am right now, I got stuff everywhere. It is crazy. And somehow or another, God blesses me and gets it taken care of. You know, that's one of the things where I'm not very good about organizing any form of the fashion. I get up and I go and get it done. I mean, like every morning, my phone has over 500 text messages. And guys, if you need to get in touch with me, call me. I take every phone call I can. And if I don't take your phone call, please send me a text. I will call you back. I call people back all day, every day. God told me to take every phone call and every text message I can. He didn't say nothing about email. So don't email me, because if you email me, you ain't getting back in touch with me.
Well, thank you for showing up on time. And
Oh,
after a few phone
always on time.
calls, you did get back to me.
I mean, again, I was raised right by my mom and dad, and I'm always about, being on time, and I'm a man of my word. That's the only thing I have is my word.
So how did you know to be on time? Did you set your alarm on your clock, or internally you just know? Look at the clock, be there.
Yes, ma'am. I wish I could do those things, all these little things, little apps and stuff. I'm technically an idiot, so somebody needs to help me figure all that stuff out.
Well, you're giving some people that are just like you hope.
There you go.
So, what do you do? So, what do you do for fun and relaxation? How do you relax? Do you relax?
The only thing I do for relaxation, and I've been very bad the last 2 months, because it's just been 90-0, going, so far behind trying to get, everything taken care of. But the one thing I do for me, that I've made a promise as of Monday.
Monday.
Made it on Monday. I made it on Monday, and it happened on Monday, but it didn't happen on Tuesday. But it is going to happen today. But the one thing I do for me that's always been my go-to to really relax and me time. Me time is working out. That is what I do for relaxation. That's what I do for me, because I know it helps me blow off steam, but more importantly, it helps my temple. And I've been very bad. I've become my own client. And I promise God that I'm getting back. My body looks like hell right now. I'm in the worst shape I've ever been. And, it's your fault. It's all your fault, because I have to do so much for you guys. So help me out, guys. I need some me time.
All right. So I see that John popped on the screen. Did you have a question for our guest?
Yes, I have one quick question for Chris.
Christopher.
Christopher.
I'm sorry. Don't say grandma. I have a lot of people in my family and close friends who have taken the jab, especially Pfizer. What recommendations do you have for them?
Okay. I did a whole piece on this yesterday with Dr. Group, and this got me in so much trouble back in January, and I had to go public with it again, because I can't keep this unearthed, and I don't care. You guys can laugh at me, make fun of me. It doesn't matter to me. Number one,